In the wake of a devastating earthquake, a bizarre structure previously hidden beneath the earth was revealed, catching the eye of local authorities and curious onlookers alike. Among them was Carter, a former Marine with a knack for adventure who couldn't resist the pull of the unknown. Venturing closer than anyone else dared, Carter began to uncover the secrets of this strange formation, his military training kicking in as he navigated the precarious terrain. But what he found inside the structure turned his seasoned composure into sheer disbelief, leaving him utterly pale. Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any news stories. He had been walking along the beach when the earthquake hit. He tried to stay upright, but the ground was shaking too much. People screamed around him and children began to cry. When the earth settled down again, he saw a group of people gathering a little further down the coast, so he headed over there. He couldn't immediately see what the commotion was about, but as he pushed himself through the crowd, he suddenly saw they were all staring at something sticking out of the ground with sand still gliding down the sides. Suddenly, a police officer arrived. All right, nothing to see here," he said as he waved his hands around. People began to walk away, but Carter stayed, his curiosity getting the better of him. You," the police officer said after Carter was the only one left on the beach. "Didn't you hear me?" But Carter was too caught up in his own thoughts. The structure looked so familiar to him that it was giving him chills. He was suddenly snapped back to reality when the officer grabbed him tightly by the arm. "Get out of here," he said, but Carter refused. He showed the police officer one of the Marine badges he always carried with him, and he immediately loosened his grip. "Let me help you," Carter asked hopefully. Being near the structure made him feel something he hadn't felt in a long time, the thrill of discovering the unknown. Since he had been forced to leave the Marine because of a health issue, he had felt purposeless. But now his drive was back, and it was stronger than ever. The officer looked hesitant, so Carter tried one last thing. "You probably have better things to do," he said as he pointed at the marina, where people were running around, still in shock from the earthquake. Carter sighed as he watched the police officer walk away, but then he turned his attention to the structure. It was covered in moss and barnacles, which was the first thing Carter focused on. He began to pull the moss off the structure and was shocked to see rusted metal underneath. After removing all of the moss, Carter took a few steps backward. He was staring at the bow of a very old ship, with the rest of the ship still buried underground. His mouth fell open as he spotted the tips of what looked like dedge painted on the bow, indicating that he was looking at a marine boat, probably a destroyer of some sort. It brought him straight back to his old job, and he brushed his hand across the cold and wet metal. As he walked around the bow, he noticed a small crack where the metal was severely rusted and easy to damage. Feeling the urge to look inside, Carter kicked through the rusted part, creating a hole he could crawl through. All of the metal was rusted, so it was easy to break through, but that also made it dangerous. He wanted to text the police officer. At least one person knew his whereabouts, but he had no service. Carter paused, his mind racing with the eerie echoes of the dark ship. The rusted corridors whispered of dangers past and present. He could push forward into the shadowy depths alone or return for backup. Decided, he turned back toward the beach to find the officer. The moment Carter climbed out of the ship and stepped onto the sandy beach, his phone buzzed back to life. A wave of relief washed over him as he dialed the officer's number. The phone rang twice before the officer answered, his voice cautious yet intrigued. "I'm coming back," Carter announced. He needed that backup if they were to explore further safely. It didn't take long for the officer to arrive at the beach, his expression one of disbelief as he surveyed the now visible structure. "I never would have guessed," he muttered as he approached the ship. "Good call on not going solo," the officer said, examining the ship's exterior. "This could have collapsed with you inside." He pulled out his phone to call in a team of specialists. "We need experts to make sure it's stable." Carter nodded, feeling vindicated in his decision to retreat. Soon, Barry and Armin would join them, ready to uncover what lay beneath. As Barry and Armin arrived, Officer Peter introduced them. "These guys are the best in marine archaeology and structural safety," he explained. They quickly formed a plan, equipping themselves with helmets featuring mounted lights, sturdy gloves, and backpacks loaded with tools. With their gear secured, Carter led the way back into the bowels of the ship. The metal groaned under their weight as they passed through the holes Carter had previously made. The mechanical whir grew louder as the hidden door slid open, revealing a dark room beyond. Carter shone his light inside, illuminating an officer's quarters that seemed frozen in time. The room was a snapshot of naval life, untouched by time or the chaos outside. Uniforms hung in the closet. and a desk set covered with maps and personal belongings. As they rummaged through the desk, Carter's fingers brushed against a leather-bound journal. The gold lettering on the cover read Captain's Log. Flipping through the pages, he found entries detailing a take-or-secret mission and cryptic references to an important object on board. The discovery sparked an immediate debate among the group. Officer Peter insisted on reporting their findings to their superiors, citing protocol and safety. Carter, however, felt a strong pull to explore further. "There's more to this ship than old uniforms," he argued. Peter's insistence on caution was met with Carter's adventurous spirit. With a mutual decision to keep their findings a secret for now, the group ventured deeper into the ship. They stumbled upon an old communication room where, to their astonishment, some equipment still hummed with power. "It's still running?" Carter whispered, flipping switches and watching dials flicker to life. The air crackled with static as screens lit up, revealing old frequencies still in operation. As they experimented with the equipment, Carter's hand brushed against a lever, and a sharp, repeating signal filled the room. The distress call, looping endlessly, sounded decades old. Following the signal source led them to a secluded part of the ship. So there in a dark corner, they found the skeletal remains of a crew member, his bones clad in a tattered uniform. In his hands lay a notebook, its pages yellowed but intact. Carter carefully opened it to find a map and notes pointing to a confidential area deep within the ship. They agreed to follow the clues laid out before them, driven by the allure of uncovering historical secrets. As they prepared to delve further, the ship seemed to echo with the whispers of its past, urging them on. Reaching a sealed door that promised more secrets, Barry knelt to examine a dusty control panel. With a few deft moves, he bypassed the ancient security system. Inside the newly opened room, the team's lights flickered across an array of forgotten equipment until they settled on a single, conspicuous metal box. With reverent hands, Carter lifted it from its resting place. The box was heavy, its lock rusted but intact. Frustrated but not defeated, Barry suddenly snapped up the box. "I've got the tools for this back at the lab," he said, sliding the heavy object into his backpack. "We need to handle this carefully. Let's get it back without tipping off anyone." Carter nodded in agreement, aware the right tools and environment were crucial for opening their find without damaging what lay inside. Carter and Barry hurried to Barry's lab. They needed to open the mysterious box without damaging its potentially historic contents. Barry grabbed a pair of bolt cutters, positioned them around the lock's shackle, and snapped it off, then shine crunch. The lock fell away. Inside, everything was remarkably preserved, completely dry, a surprising find given its underwater history. They peered inside to discover papers and documents neatly stacked, each sheet covered in cryptic codes. The contents of the box were all meticulously written in an uncoded code. Barry and Carter exchanged puzzled looks, knowing they were out of their depth. "I know just the person who can crack this," Carter said with a determined grin. They knew this puzzle required a specific expertise. It was time to bring in Armand, their friend and a seasoned decoder of such mysteries. Later that day, Barry and Carter found themselves at Armand's door, the smell of the ocean still clinging to their clothes. Armand was home, trying to wash away the day's grime. He raised an eyebrow at their unexpected visit, but his curiosity piqued when he saw the box they carried. "What's this?" he asked, wiping his hands on a towel as he stepped aside to let them in. Armand's surprise turned to intrigue as he laid eyes on the coded documents. With a swift motion, he welcomed them inside his modest living room, cluttered with books and papers. The room was silent except for the occasional turn of a page and Armand muttered observations. He whispered, almost to himself. The documents detailed a secret weapon designed during the Second World War, which could have dramatically altered its course. The implications of Armand's findings hit them hard. "So this ship was a warship with a lost weapon?" Barry managed to ask. Nodding, Armand confirmed their suspicions. The ship they had found, buried and forgotten, was not just any vessel, it was a relic of war, potentially carrying a weapon of immense power, lost until now. Realizing the gravity of their discovery, Carter picked up his phone and called the local police. The chain reaction was immediate, from the police to the FBI, and then straight to the government. Each authority was more alarmed than the last, and within hours, plans were being drawn to excavate and secure the ship carefully from its sandy grave. Under heavy security and with an air of secrecy, the ship was extracted from the ground. The ship was transported to a secure facility where it could be studied and safeguarded against any risks it might pose. At the secure location, teams of military and research personnel swarmed the warship. They began a thorough examination, aiming to recover whatever they could from the vessel. Despite the intense scrutiny and investigations, the exact nature of the weapon found inside the ship remained classified. The tale of the lost ship turned Carter into a local sensation. Word of his adventure spread like wildfire through the town, and soon everyone knew his name. He was invited to share his story at community gatherings and local schools, where eager listeners hung on to every word about the mysterious ship and its hidden secrets. As the months passed, the fervor surrounding the shipwreck and its cargo waned. The story that had once dominated local headlines and dinner table conversations gradually receded into the background. Carter's life returned to normalcy, but the memories of his adventure remained vivid in his mind, a constant reminder of the excitement that had briefly swept him up. The adventure rekindled a spark in Carter that he hadn't felt in years. Craving the adrenaline and camaraderie he'd experienced, Carter decided to channel this energy into a new venture. He signed up as a volunteer firefighter, eager to throw himself into another form of service that promised not just thrills, but the chance to make a real difference in his community.